Hi, my name is David Knight, and welcome to Those Amazing Songs. Psalm 45, Royal Wedding Song. Psalm 45 is a royal wedding song that celebrates the extravagance and the majesty of the king and his bride. But as you'll see, there's a lot more to it. There are layers of inspiration that make this song both rich and timeless. In the opening lines, the king is admired as the most excellent of men. He is gracious in speech, striking in bearing, and dressed in splendid robes with the sword on his hip. Beneath his regal robes beats a heart of integrity and virtue. The king is highly esteemed by both God and the nation for his reign of truth and humility and justice. His public leadership ensures God's justice for the nation, in the same way that, presumably, his marriage will reflect God's love in his family. And the bride? Little is said of her, except that the king is absolutely smitten by her beauty, accented by a dazzling embroidered gown, interwoven with gold. Exquisite perfumes waft in the air, and the bridesmaids amplify her grandeur. An orchestra plays as the celebrated procession makes a glittering entrance to the palace and the wedding hall. As part of Israel's prayer book, we realize that this psalm is not just a wedding song, but a prayer for God's blessing on the couple's marriage. Like the Song of Solomon, it expresses the Bible's high regard for marriage as one of God's wonderful creation gifts, both mystery and ecstasy, an intimate place for love to blossom and flourish, and for joy to flow. I think it is significant that Psalm 45 follows immediately on the final word of Psalm 44, which was Hesed, God's commitment of covenant love and loyalty. And yet, in this song, there is not a single reference to the king's love for his bride or hers for him. This is no doubt an arranged marriage, where love is the goal, not the inspiration for the marriage. But as Eugene Peterson points out, there are two elements in this song that are vitally important in every marriage, royal or not, if love is going to prosper. The first is adoration. The song is full of visual beauty and elegance, fragrance, music, and joy, both inward and outward beauty, admirable qualities that are observed and celebrated. Any couple who takes the time to notice and admire each other, and who maintain the practice of appreciation with daily compliments and affirmation, will find their love growing deeper and richer because of the beauty they discover in each other. Couples who neglect this practice will inevitably find their love growing stale and unmotivating. The second element is detachment. In verse 10, the singer urges the bride to let go of her past, to leave her family behind, and to embrace the new relationship that she's stepping into. Listen to me, O royal daughter. Take to heart what I say. Forget your people and your family far away, for your royal husband delights in your beauty. Forget your family sounds harsh, but it echoes the statement in Genesis that a man must leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. Both bride and groom must leave their past behind them. Old allegiances and familiar securities will stifle creativity. They are simply too small, too narrow, too familiar to allow us to grow. Without leaving, there can be no cleaving. Marriage is a new beginning that opens the door to a new set of unforeseen opportunities. And that's how the psalm closes. Looking years beyond the wedding, the song foresees a glorious destiny and a dynasty that will bring blessing to the whole world. Your sons will become kings like their father. You will make them rulers over many lands, bringing honor to your name in every generation. Therefore the nations will praise you forever. Throughout the Psalter, the royal psalms often paint an ideal portrait of the king, a portrait that exceeds the reality of even the most virtuous of Israel's actual kings. For example, in verse 6 of our psalm, it addresses the king as if he were God himself. Your throne, O God, will last forever and ever. A scepter of justice will be the scepter of your kingdom. Perhaps this was intended as poetic license, since the king rules with God's authority and on God's behalf. But the New Testament sees this verse as referring ultimately to the Messiah, God's Son, the ultimate king, whose scepter will rule forever and with perfect justice for all the world. So this psalm highlights a bridegroom theme threaded throughout the whole Bible that gives us rich insight into the heart and purposes of God. Jesus told a parable about the kingdom of heaven being like a king who prepares a wedding banquet for his son, and another about a wedding party that fell asleep instead of watching for the bridegroom. When he told these stories, I suspect Jesus had this psalm in mind. And at the climax of the book of Revelation, we hear that the wedding of the Lamb has come and his bride has made herself ready. The ultimate cosmic royal wedding. The bride is the community of Christ followers from many nations, a diverse community of men and women, rich and poor, learned and illiterate, single and married, all devoted to Jesus as our lover and friend. It's truly inspiring to read Psalm 45 as a picture of Jesus as the supreme and majestic King, and of his passionate love that he has for his bride, the church. As the king in the psalm is enthralled by the beauty of his bride, so Jesus made himself servant to his beloved bride, sacrificing his life for her to purify her, to make her holy, radiant, and without stain or wrinkle. And the bride works at preparing herself for him, to be ready to meet him. She prepares herself by adoration and detachment. If you are a follower of Jesus, let me turn that preparation into questions. Am I taking time every day to cultivate intimacy with Jesus, admiring his excellence, telling him what I admire in him, and then seeking to reflect every aspect of his virtue in my life? Do I speak glowingly about him to all who will listen? Do I resist the seductive allure of a world that loves lesser things? Am I working hard to advance his reign of justice in the world? Do I live in daily anticipation of his return, when he will claim me as one of his chosen ones? As St. Paul said, this is a profound mystery. But what a wonderful betrothal the followers of Jesus have been brought into. And what a glorious eternity of expanding love awaits us, with all nations singing the praises of Jesus, the King of Kings and the most excellent of men. Take care.